Tales from the streets.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I've got my brother Taylor Martin, my actual brother, on the line. We're going to have a conversation. Taylor is a Marine Corps veteran, and I'm excited to have him on. So, Taylor, what's up, buddy?
Hey man, happy to be here, man. It's freaking awesome that you decided to do this. I know you're excited to share your stories with people, and I hope people enjoy it. I really do.
And as you stated in the last one, my first episode kind of cut me off, but my name is Tyler. And yes, I was born first. My brother was born 8 years after me. He was Taylor. So you could blame his mama for that, but
They were creative.
very creative, Taylor and Tyler. So Taylor, I wanted to get into just kind of, I know you're my brother, but for people who don't know, tell me a little bit about your background and kind of how you grew up and what that looked like. Cause just for everyone to know, Taylor and I have different mothers, but we have the same father. And so Taylor had a different life experience than I did growing up. Go, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, we were together up until about I was like 6 or 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you and Sarah went to Florida. Definitely very similar in the aspect of bouncing around a lot. Our dad switched jobs, or if he, moved up in his career, we would end up in one place, then we would move to another, then 6 months here, then 2 years here. Like that was majority of my life, majority of Tyler's life. So that was definitely an experience for us. At the age of 11, my mother and our father ended up, getting divorced. We moved out to Wisconsin, super small town,
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin.
How do you pronounce it?
Muscatine, not
Yep.
Muskota. And moved up there, and I basically became a big fish in a little pond, essentially. I was in 8th grade, starting varsity on all 3 sports, basketball, baseball, football. Was on the honor roll, was the president of our, basically of our athletics. I, did everything I could to try to stand out in a small town, which, it's not hard. Not like, living in freaking Sarasota where you're like one person amongst thousands.
Fair enough.
Ended up graduating from there, graduating from Muscatine, Wisconsin. Thought I was going to go to college, went up to La Crosse, Wisconsin. Like this was my goal. I'm going to be a physical therapist. I'm going to stay in the athletics. This is what I'm going to do. Spent 2 years up there and found out that alcohol is a better friend to me than academics was. And so basically I partied for 2 years. The athletics, the academics, all that was 100% pushed on the back burner. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, this was what I thought I was going to do, but now I've kind of wasted away 2 years. And our father, like my brother has previously stated in the first episode, was in the Marines. And so I decided to follow suit since I didn't know what I wanted to do, where I was going to be, didn't know any of that. Thought this was the best option. So I joined in the fall time of 2012. Ended up getting, I joined in summertime, ended up getting shipped off in the fall time.
Mm-hmm.
Went out there to Paris Island, did my training in South Carolina for both my basic training and my initial Marine Corps training. Did that, then ended up jumping over to California for communications training. I was, for anybody who's in the military, I was an 0621, which is communications. It was basically a glorified grunt. I played with radios while everyone, went pew pew. Was out there, ended up getting selected for what's called muck training. Mucks are basically you just take one step further in your communications and you start learning about satellites. That's actually kind of where my future kind of took off. I didn't know it at the time, but that's where it started. Did muck training, ended up knowing a whole bunch of different satellites. Can't get into a lot of that, but just overall view of how satellites work for the military and civilians.
Mm-hmm.
Then I ended up going back to the East Coast, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, or if you're the Lejeune family, Camp Lejeune.
Mm-hmm.
was there for was there for technically 5 years, but 4 years plus an extension.
Mm-hmm.
Was deployed majority of the time. So first deployment was 4 months. Second deployment was eight-ish, eight and some change. I've been all over. Not as much as you have there, Tyler,
Yep.
but
Fair.
I definitely have a few countries under my belt. Some good, some bad. Well, majority bad. Did that for 5 years, 5 years and some change. Got out and didn't really know what to do when I got out because I had every intentions of staying in the Corps. I ended up getting hurt my last two deployments, and they basically told me the job that I'm doing, I am a liability. So that was super cool to hear.
Mm.
Yeah, fought that as much as I could. Like, hey, no, I'm not. I can still do my training. I can still do all my specs. Like, I'm good. Nope, 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 nope. Okay, fine. So ended up getting out and moving to Colorado. Moved out to Colorado just to kind of chill for a little bit, kind of get readjusted into civilian life,
Mm-hmm.
and getting out of the Corps and going into going back to Colorado was during the time when everybody was trying to figure out this new era that is coming in with people being who they are and whatnot. So that was kind of an eye opener for me, was coming in and trying to figure out, like, okay, what's going on with what's this? And it definitely took me a little bit to readjust to not only Colorado, but the new era, the new genre that's coming in, and finally got adjusted. I worked at a gym for, I don't know, about a year, maybe two, which was awesome. Having a free gym membership, especially as a Marine, was fantastic. Then, then I don't know if you want to kick into the good story, or if you just want me to keep doing the actual bio stuff, because this is
Well,
when the good story kicks in.
yeah. Well, hold on. So actually, I wanted to step back just a little bit, and I love it. So something else that between Taylor and I never. I'm going to talk about your sports aspect a little bit because it was always I'm super proud of you. I love it. I love what you've been able to achieve. But sports related, I always got to the dance. I've been to a couple state championships, district championships. I never won. I never finished it out as a champion. I know of at least one state championship you won, but what did your how did that develop?
Yeah, so for baseball in high school, I have two state championships under my belt,
You son of a bitch.
and
I love it. I love it.
for AAU basketball, I have I guess regional, championship on belt. We went to Las Vegas. I
Mm.
was I was very similar to your football career, where I was the one white dude that played with 11 black guys. I was the only white guy on the team
Hey, bro, balling though.
for this
Earned it.
AAU team.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely. And my role there was, I knew who the scorers were. I know that my goal, my job was to rebound and pass the ball. That's what I did. Give whoever it was the ball, and then if they miss, re-give them the ball. I'll take it. Screw it.
Yeah, I think my only records for basketball was that I fouled out in 45 seconds. I think I was a freshman in high school when I learned that a screen, you can't do a moving screen. I went to go set up a screen and I just jacked a dude with my elbow, knocked him to the ground. So basketball was definitely not my strong suit by any stretch of the imagination. And then what about football? Because you lettered in all three, correct?
I did. For football, our football team was pretty much well doo doo.
Okay, fair
Um,
enough.
we it's really funny too, because the school I went to for probably 40 years, maybe 30 years, was known for wrestling and football. That was its jam.
Hmm.
And as soon as I got, as a freshman, it all of a sudden switched to baseball. Like that was everything for us was based on, we got a brand new field. We got all sorts of money coming from the state. Like I don't know what happened, where the transition hit, but
Mm-hmm.
baseball was our sport and it has been probably since I graduated. So yeah, at least another 10 years after me.
That's dude, I love it. And so again, I had kind of the opposite. So the high school I went to down in Sarasota, Florida, Riverview High School, we had Coach Sprague who had all these awards, Nike Coach of the Year, state championships. He had all these things. Like I said, I think we went to the dance one time. We lost. We won a couple of district championships, but we could never string together enough to go state. And then I went and played football at Tennessee State University. And the year that they recruited me, they won the Ohio Valley Conference Championship. So all the seniors had all the big championship rings, diamonds, balling out of control. The year that I started playing, I think we only won 2 games. And then I don't think we ever broke 50% after that. So that, maybe it was me. I don't know. I was the bad luck charm, but you definitely had a different sports career.
The one white boy was the bad luck charm.
Maybe, possibly, definitely, possibly. And then so as you say, our father was a Marine, and you feel that because I remember when you were ready to go for the Marines, me and Dad both were like, "Don't do that. You need to go, like, I don't know, Air Force, Army, something else, something that would pay you more." Or again, you and I have debated on pay more. I know the government, military pays all the same, but I guess quality of life was better for other branches, the Marines. But what was the biggest motivation to be a Marine of all things?
That factor right there. The fact yeah, exactly. That the Marine was telling me, don't do this. Like, you're telling me not to do something. I'm definitely going to go do that. 100%.
No,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And also too, with that is nothing else fit. I talked to Navy, I talked to everybody, and nothing else fit. Looking back, I don't regret my decision in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
The only job I've learned about that I really wished I would have known at the time, because I would have picked that, would have been a combat diver with the Navy.
Oh, yeah.
I've learned about that job, especially being out here in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wished I would have done that. I'd have done that.
Damn right. Damn right.
That would have been amazing.
So, it means a lot to me. I guess our families are just built that way, because my son, your nephew, has finished Marine Corps boot camp. I'm actually traveling down to Parris Island this week to go see him graduate. But same thing with him. I was like, he wanted to join the military. He's like, Dad, I don't know what I want to do in college, so I want to join the military. So I said, hey, go talk to all the recruiters. We'll talk about what's the best fit for you, and then we'll talk through it. And he came back and he goes, I'm going to be a Marine. I'm like, whoa, what happened with the other ones? He goes, the Air Force recruiter didn't want to talk to me. He blew me off. He goes, I didn't like the Army. He goes, I didn't want to be in the Navy. He goes, something about the Marines. He goes, I just want to do it. And he made that decision the summer before his senior year. So right after junior year. And as you know, Alec was still a big gamer, not really into sports. He was my music guy, theater guy. But once he said he wanted to be a Marine, he kind of just dropped all that. He started running, working out, started feeling himself a little bit. And yeah, now he's a Marine. So another sticking point that I'll bring up at some point with our father. I'm hoping I'm going to get him on a podcast too, just to hear his pearls of wisdom. Is that our father has a wall with all the family members that were in the military, whatever that headshot's called, right, when you graduate. They're all, 17, 18, 19 years old. But I'm on a shelf and I'm like, Dad, come on, man. I was a cop, federal agent, state trooper. He's like, yeah, what branch of the military is that? That's just kind of how the mindset is.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like the Marine Corps taught you or changed you in any way to set you up for the career you have now?
Before I answer that, I want to go back real quick for if we have any Coast Guard people listening. We didn't forget you. You're now DHS, so you don't count. Okay.
You don't count. Funny you say that. My daughter is absolutely interested in Coast Guard because she likes law enforcement. But we'll talk about that for another show. But
I know, and I'm so excited about that. So excited about that.
I hope she does. But anyway, she's my baby. She's still got a
absolutely. But also too, yeah, Alec is graduating in like 4 days too, right?
Yeah, buddy. He's pumped, dude. He's pumped.
And I'm super upset I can't make that. For everyone to know, I'm out here in Hawaii, and going to the East Coast is basically a 2-day 2-day journey, and they're only going to be there for like 4 or 5 days, and I can't make that trip with work, and it's awful, I hate it.
Yeah. Well, also you have a pregnant wife at home, so
I
you're being.
I do. I'm about to be a daddy. That is
Yes,
correct.
yes, you are. All right. I think that kind of catches us up. Let's get into Colorado and story number one. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Do you want me to answer your previous question about Marine Corps setting me up
Sorry.
for, or do you just want to jump?
No, go ahead. Sorry. Marine Corps setting you up. I get
Yeah.
excited.
Okay. No. You're fine. You're fine. So for everybody who, if you're listening, if you're debating about joining the military, I'm going to 1000% tell you that you should do it, because it sets you up for every conceivable possible thing that you can imagine, right? So me and my brother have talked about this 100 times. If you have a military background plus a college degree, there is nothing you can't do, period.
In the U.S. for sure.
In the US, for sure, for sure. For, outside of the US, I don't exactly know how that works, but 100% here in the United States, military background, college degree, you will set yourself up for every success you can possibly think of. So to answer your question, yes, it did set me up. It got me on the path of where I am, from, getting out of the Marines to Triple Canopy, to getting my foot into the door, to FEMA, to now working for the Space Force. It was literally a stepping stone of knowledge, of people, of camaraderie that set me up to where I am now. So 100%, if that is in your future, do it, do it, do it, do it.
Well said. Well said. All right, man. Let's jump into it because this is it's not
Oh, the fun story.
it's not 100% a law enforcement show, but I like to kind of propose that. And I hear the roosters, which I did not know until I went to Hawaii. They're fucking everywhere.
They are everywhere. There are chickens everywhere, and you cannot eat them because they are riddled with parasites and vermin. So they're just
Yeah,
kind of here.
would not recommend it for sure.
Absolutely not.
Well,
So the fun story where we kind of left off from Colorado. I'm not a small person. Me and my brother are not small people in any conceivable fashion, but also considering it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so I kind of thought this would be a good story to tell. So my first few months in Colorado, I started dating a girl. Not going to say names.
Nope.
But she's absolutely, she was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, stunning, was into the gym, all these different things. And at the time, it's like, this is what I want, yeah, hell yeah. Well, she did have a kid, which was kind of not a huge deal breaker for me because I love children, I love kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't really affect my life, right? I was like, I'm not in a negative sense. In a positive sense, I love that kid. He was, he was a good kid. I don't know how he is now. This has been forever ago. But started dating this girl. A lot of red flags at the beginning. A lot of them. Little anger issues here and there. Little controlling issues here and there. Little bits of mind games, manipulations thrown in every once in a while. And this was like the first 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And, I ignored it because she's pretty, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was opening day for Colorado Rockies, and we decided to go see it. Go see the Rockies game, go be part of the environment. Go drink, go party, go enjoy that experience. Well, she had a kid super young, so she didn't get to have the earlier life, like your early 20s, all that kind of stuff. She had a kid; she had to be a mom. So now that the baby is a little bit older and she can actually do things, she went hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went out and having a good time, and then it was drink after drink after drink, and I was like, "Yo, like, slow down, calm down a little bit."
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the turning point. Was me saying, "Hey, you need to slow down." Basically, how dare I tell her what to do? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, it became to a point where I'm like, we need to go home. Like, you are blacked out. You are fumbling. You don't know what's going on. You just got into a fight in the bathroom with some chick, and your mom was there. Like, the bouncers are putting you in headlocks. So I'm having to, like, try to get these bouncers up without having a whole group of bouncers on me. It was just chaos. I'm like, all right, we need to stop. Like this all needs to go away. So called an Uber, got on the Uber. She ended up passing out. I'm like, okay, cool. Get her to sleep. We'll get to the house, put her to bed. We'll just count this day as just a bad night. It is what it is. So finally we get back to the house in Colorado and she wakes up, gets out of the Uber, looks at me and proceeds to tell me how big of a piece of shit I am. She told me that she did not want to go home. How dare you bring her back to the house? You don't fucking listen. You don't tell me what to do. And I'm like, what is happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
So she proceeds to walk up, and I, at the time, because it's Colorado, it's cold, I had a big bushy beard.
Yeah, you
She
did.
comes up, grabs my beard, and yanks me down and goes, "Don't you ever fucking." I was like, okay, what is happening right now?
That's wild.
And she proceeds to run up the stairs because we lived on like the third floor of like this apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
Runs all the way up. I'm trying to get up the stairs, make sure she's not gonna like fall or something like that. I get to I get to the top. She's standing there waiting for me, trying to Spartan kick me back down the stairs. And I'm like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, that's wild.
So, so finally I get up to the stairs and this is the first time she punches me and she hits me and I'm like, what? So I grab her and I'm like, what are you doing? And of course, this isn't quiet, right?
Yeah.
The neighbors across the hall heard all the commotion. I was like, hey, is everything good? I'm like, yeah, I'm just trying to get my drunk girlfriend back in the house. Everything's good, right? So finally I get into the house. She's freaking out. She's like throwing stuff in the house, gets into the bathroom, changes clothes, jumps on the bed and falls asleep. And I'm like, okay, what,
Mm-hmm.
what is going on? So I'm all right. So finally in bed, not a big deal. I go take a shower, get the night off me, whatever, go to change. I go to open the door. She's waiting there and proceeds to just unload fury, punching me in the head, punching me in the face, punching me, clawing me. And I'm like, what is happening? And so finally, I get her on the ground. I put her in like an arrest position. I get her hands behind her back. I take my bed sheet and I tie her hands. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah.
And I got claw marks down my chest. I got bits of fake nails in my arm, in my cheek. I wish you could like do the video one. I'd show you the pictures of it. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I have all that happen there. She's fuming, she's screaming, and then she calmed down. I let her go. She proceeds to grab her phone and goes to call her baby daddy to come over here and kick my ass. Like that's what's
Mm-hmm.
gonna happen. You don't. I'm like, oh my god. And so during this time, apparently my neighbors have called the cops.
Yep.
And in Colorado, if there's any, I don't know about the rest of the states, but in Colorado, if there's a domestic type case that's going on, it requires two police officers to show up. And so two police officers showed up, knock on the door. I'm bleeding. She then proceeds. So they're coming up the stairs. Okay. She proceeds to take off outside down the stairs. They grab her. They come upstairs to figure out what's going on. They're like, hey, sir. They open the door. They see me bleeding all over the place. They're like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Not normal.
this is not normal. This is not correct. Smartest decision I ever made was never to actually put hands on her because otherwise I'd have been hemmed up so fast. Only
Mm-hmm.
thing I did was detain her to try to freaking save myself from getting any more fake nails in my body.
Mm-hmm.
They came up, they're looking at me, they're taking pictures of what's going on, and I'm telling them, this exact same story while she's downstairs not saying a thing. I don't want to fucking talk to you. I don't want to fucking talk to anyone. The just going off.
Yeah.
So finally, the cops ended up taking her to jail. I'm in the clear. I hate using this word, but I was the victim of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And take her to jail overnight. It was a Friday night, and she stayed in jail until Monday morning. And we go to the courthouse. The judge asked me if I want to press charges, if I want a restraining order. I was like, no, no, no. It's just a drunken stupor. Like, she didn't mean it. Oh, I hate myself for saying this.
Very common. Very common.
Yeah. All good, all good, all good. Okay, okay. And I proceeded to be with this woman for 2 years. And was mentally and physically abused for 2 years until finally I had hernia surgery. And she decided to break it off as I woke up from hernia surgery, and basically never talked to her since.
Dude, it's such a crazy story, man. Every time you tell it, I learned something new. But again, because I've been in law for what you're saying, I've heard so many times. It's rare to have a male victim of domestic violence, but it does occur way more than you think. And most men don't want to pursue it. But like you said, like if you don't tell them what happened, then you get hemmed up. And
Correct.
it is almost a death sentence to get jobs, to get anything if you are the perpetrator of domestic violence. So, I applaud you. I know, I've talked about it a few times over the years, but I mean, that shit stays with you.
Oh, it does. It definitely affected my dating life for a very long time. Very long
Yes.
time.
And you are now happily married. You have a kid on the way. So,
Happily married.
you've moved on.
Absolutely. I will definitely say Jen is the best thing that has happened to me in a long time. She she embraced my suck for a little bit because again, after that, you don't want to date. You don't want to be around females. You don't want any of that.
Yeah.
And Jen took it in stride. She, accepted me for who I am, accepted, the baggage that comes with it. And almost 4 years later, happily married in Hawaii and have a baby soon to be in April.
Let's go, buddy. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's move on to some other. You mentioned Triple Canopy. How did you get into that?
Yes. So people who don't know what Triple Canopy is, Canopy is the aftermath of reorganizing. Oh gosh, Black. I can't think of the name. Basically, there was.
Yeah.
What was it?
No, go ahead. I can't remember either. I'm sure.
I can't either. I can't either. It was basically it was all the guys during our 20-year war that would go over there, and they were mercenaries, but they ended up getting in trouble because they had videos of them like pissing on bodies and all that stuff. And a retired Delta Force guy was like, "This is bullshit. I'm cleaning house. I'm gonna turn it into Triple Canopy, not just mercenaries, right? We're gonna do the full spectrum of the federal government, hence the triple part, right?"
Yep.
And I kind of found it through all my military connections and like the Facebook communities that I follow that in Colorado, Triple Canopy was hiring for overseas. And I was like, you know what? After all this bullshit that's been happening with my ex, after all this, like, you know what? I'm gonna go overseas. I'm gonna go make bank for a little bit, reevaluate everything, and then come back. So my original hiring process was to go over to Israel with Triple Canopy. That's how I originally got hired. And then this stupid thing happened called COVID. And I was stuck as basically a glorified security guard in Denver, Colorado for 3 years.
What did you do?
So basically my job with Triple Canopy was assisting federal protective services in whatever they do, right? So whether it be at the federal office buildings, whether it was guarding the FBI, whether it was anything related to the federal government and sometimes state government, we were there as like the first line of defense before FPS got there. So we still had arresting powers. We still carried, we still had everything other than tasers and stuff like that to assist to whatever needs to happen during that situation. Then FPS would show up and then they would do the actual policing. It was definitely an interesting gig. I learned a lot about how the federal government works from doing that because I worked in all different buildings from, again, FBI, the ag services, the brand new facility that's being built in Colorado Springs for the Space Force, which is kind of ironic. I've learned so much from that. It was an awful job because it was so boring, especially considering I was getting hired to go to Israel. But I don't regret it because that job got me to my next job with FEMA.
Very good. What did you do with FEMA?
So FEMA, I was communications for search and rescue. So basically my very first deployment was to Hurricane Ian down there in Florida. And my job was to make sure that the first responders, I would follow them and I would make sure that they could get a hold of whoever they need to get a hold of. That if they need to get a hold of the Coast Guard, Air Force, whoever, I was the guy, hey, look, this is what we need. This is the resources that we need. I would establish the communications with who they needed to, sometimes relay the message if the one proper person wasn't there, and we would get them in. I was a part of finding bodies, of all that incorporates with hurricane disaster relief with FEMA. And it was the most fun I have ever had. I just worked with the worst possible human beings you could imagine.
On the FEMA side, or what do you mean by that?
On the FEMA side, first time in my life, there was two people in the office that I got along with very well. Everybody else was like in their 60s, retired Air Force,
Hmm.
and at least three of them were the most racist human beings I've ever met in my life. I don't know if I could say one of the jokes that he said, but I probably can't because it's bad.
Probably not. Yeah, let's probably not. But you bring up a good point, and I mean, if you want to talk about it, because FEMA's coming under scrutiny right now with the hurricane, I think Helene that hit Florida and all the way up to North Carolina, and then now with Milton that just smoked Florida, and that they're not setting up comms. They've said they're out of money. They don't have the personnel. Like, could you speak on any of that, on maybe why that's the case, or what that could possibly stem from?
Yeah, so the big thing I will defend FEMA with is, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, is that FEMA has to be asked to come in.
Hmm.
So basically the state has to be like, hey, look, we can't handle our own stuff. We need federal services. Please come in. And they have to pay for services. So Florida has to pay the federal government for services that FEMA provides, right?
Interesting. Hmm.
So that's the whole big hoopla with like back in Louisiana with Katrina, right?
Hmm.
Everybody saw all these FEMA trucks just chilling outside of Louisiana and going, what are you doing? Come here. And that's because all of the big wigs in Louisiana didn't want FEMA. They didn't want to pay. They can handle their own business. Lo and behold, they couldn't, but that's why FEMA was just sitting there waiting.
So
And that, yeah,
yeah, so
weird.
this might be above where you were, your pay grade or your decision making, but it's been brought up like FEMA's budget is, I mean, I think it's gone up exponentially every year. Currently, before the two hurricanes hit, Congress had a lot of them 20 billion with a B, and they're saying they just don't have the money, don't have the resource. What is that money for if the states then have to turn around and pay FEMA back? What does that incorporate? And again, if you don't know, that's fine.
So I definitely can't talk 100% on that because that was, way out of what I have. But
Hmm.
from visual representations, from things that I've seen, it sounds more to me as in like, not as like FEMA doesn't have the money, as in like Florida doesn't have the money to pay. That's
Interesting.
that's kind of what my understanding of that is because again, FEMA is one of the, I don't know if I want to say wealthiest because that sounds odd, but they are one of the organizations that have the most money because that's, we have natural disasters. FEMA's there to help. And if they don't have money, they can't help. So to me, it sounds like Florida doesn't have the funding.
Or North
Um,
Carolina.
it, or North Carolina. It could also be one of these things that FEMA is maybe too spread out because again, I don't know because I know with right now what's going on the East Coast, you're going to have at least three different teams over there for who
Mhm.
I work for that are going to be incorporated in this whole thing. So it could be a matter of there's too much damage. They don't know enough. The states don't have enough money to pay for the resources. It could very well be that someone just misunderstood what someone said and the news kind of just took off with it because we all know that big news media is it is what it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So again, and I apologize. We kind of touched on it and then we moved on it, but with your time in the military and dealing in the Marine Corps, that is, and then dealing with the military police, you said you've had some interactions with them. How is that different than your interactions with local police?
So big difference, right? So the biggest
Hmm.
difference there is even within the MP, it's different. So when you're overseas, when you're in the ship, when it's big boy rules, right?
Yep.
So it's protection, it's protection, 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 right?
Yep.
Everybody needs to be safe. But it's not little like, well, your registration is 7 hours expired. You can't come. It's none of that, none of that stupid crap, the micromanaging stuff. It's
Yeah.
big boy rules. Make sure everybody's safe. Make sure everybody's secure. Make sure everybody stays alive, right? Then you come here back to the States, and each branch MPs are completely different. The training is 100% different. You have and I know I'm going to inflate a lot of egos with this. You guys are welcome. The top two MPs are the Air Force and Navy.
Mm-hmm.
They get way more training than anybody else. I believe they even have I think it might be for officers. I don't exactly know who it's for, but they do have a path where you can get a law enforcement degree through MP training.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Air Force has it. I think the Navy has it too, but I think theirs is a little bit different because one of my buddies that was an MP for the Marines, they go through the same training as the Air Force, but the Marines get cut by like 4 weeks and the Air Force keeps going. And then they can even again go more and get that degree if they wanted to. So even amongst the branches, they're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's always interesting to go through, like for me, right? You have Pearl Harbor, which is all Navy and Federal Protective Services in a different branch, but it's it's way more intense going on to Pearl Harbor. Way more intense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go over here to Schofield. This is the Army base, right? They're very intense. You start getting to the little bases, not so much intense, right? Not as intense, not as in like, hey, I need this. We're gonna do this, like this whole hoopla of craziness that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can guarantee you go to any Air Force base and you are going to get the exact same treatment. Doesn't matter the size of the base. Doesn't matter.
So it's interesting you say. I didn't know that, but in my previous line of work with the Secret Service, I'll point one area. I went with Kamala Harris. She went to the Air Force graduation in Colorado. I can't remember where it's at. Where's that at? The Air Force base. Do you remember?
Air Force Academy?
Yeah, the Air Force Academy. Where's that at?
Yeah, that's in the Springs. That's in Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs. So we were having, this is 2024. So there's still a lot of pro-Palestine protests, things are going on like that. And we got word that there was going to be a mobile vehicle protest and they were going to basically block the entrances to the academy. And I was working with the locals at the time and in conjunction with Air Force Academy PD, the Air Force PD. And we were trying to figure out how we're going to deal with this because something that law enforcement doesn't deal with a lot. And they did show up, not in great numbers, but while we were trying to ascertain how to figure it out, and I was working with the local PD, and we're like, how are we going to fix this? Air Force PD just said, no, we're not dealing with this. They rolled out the security forces, their military side or their MP side. They just rolled out with big Humvees. They basically pushed the moving motorcade, blocking motorcade for the protest. They pushed it past the two entrances and they just shut it down. And so you saw like an immediate reaction from them to get it done. So that again, I didn't know that prior to you just saying it, but it makes sense to me because I saw it in action.
Oh yeah, because you have to remember the MPs are like, dude, I'm flaming Air Force egos right now. It's fine, but it's like it's their version of grunts. It's their version of infantry. Like it's their little niche group. And if you ever meet any Air Force security forces guys, they act just like grunts. Like the whole mentality, the whole mindset, especially when they get out, is very, very similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
And other obviously grunts would make fun of them, but that's the military as a whole, right? That's all make fun of each other. But much respect for the Air Force MPs, 100%.
Yeah, prior to that, most of my dealings with the Air Force were the pilots because the Air Force flies Air Force One, Air Force Two. They fly a lot of the planes for the government. I also worked a lot with the Ravens. They're the ones that protect they protect different planes. But in my previous line of work, they protect Air Force One, Air Force Two. And they were, dude, locked down, squared away. Like they handled their shit. And so hearing you say that, it makes sense to me because that's what I saw on my side dealing with them. Again, I did work with Marine Corps pilots because they fly HMX and those guys were badass. And I still have an affinity, even though you don't like helicopters, but they were very
Cool.
flying around on, and again, I'm not a military guy. I'm trying to learn. It's another source of maybe a little bit of jealousy that, I don't have that military lingo, but the Ospreys and the Blackhawks and, again, I don't know all
The
the helicopters.
Chinooks.
Chinooks, which I think these things for me were super fun and exciting to fly around in, but I've heard horror stories from other,
Oh man.
companies. They're like, hell no, man, I am never getting in there.
Yes, 100%. Helicopters and stuff are fun. I've rappelled out of a crap ton of them. They're a great time. But yeah, no, especially being with Second Anglico for all you, Marine Corps guys that are listening. No, just no helicopters. Oh yeah.
No, no,
Just
thank
no.
you. Just no,
No,
thank
thank
you.
you.
You reminded me, and I'm sorry, I didn't talk about it previously, but I remember a story you were telling me during COVID and the lockdowns and all this stuff. And there was a lot of theft and all this stuff that the grocery store, and maybe you could speak on it because you were like, hey, I got hit up to do this private job to protect the grocery store, a chain of grocery stores.
Mm,
Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
absolutely, absolutely. I
Because you,
will not say
yeah,
the name of the company
that's fine. Don't
because
have
it
to.
was the worst. It was the worst company I've ever worked for. It
Yeah,
was
but
quite awful.
tell me about it though.
But doing the actual, yeah. So Kroger, King Supers, the whole family. They had basically what was going on is they had strikes, right? So the employees wanted more money, so on and so forth. Everyone's protesting, everyone has their strikes. I saw this ad and I kind of didn't really think anything of it. My wife, she was doing this girl's hair whose husband was working for these people when they first
Hmm.
came out here.
Hmm.
And she was like, yeah, they're doing like $50 an hour. And I was like, hold up, what?
Yeah.
What's going on? And so that kind of changed my tune a little bit. I was like, okay, cool. I'll apply, my background. I'll, be easy. And I got, snatched up real quick. And he asked me if I wanted to get put in more of a problem store, if I want to get something easier. I was like, 100% problem store. Like, I didn't do everything that I've done to go just kind of chill. Like, give me a problem store, right?
Hmm.
And so I went to a King Supers that's right across from Rocky Stadium, which is high theft, high homeless, high just a lot of different stuff, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of these guys were there to basically monitor the protests, those guys for King Supers. I was there to make sure that they were okay because of all the homeless and theft and all the craziness that happens at this store.
Hmm.
So I was like, hell yeah, right? So had to have full body armor. So I had body armor on. Couldn't carry a weapon on me, but I could have one in my vehicle, which that's fine. I had flexi cuffs. If I had a taser, I was more than welcome. Like they were cleared for tasers. But I'm like, even then, that seems like a lot of paperwork that I don't feel like dealing with. Like hand to hand stuff, I'll be fine. And I wasn't worried. So went down to this King Supers. I was there for a little over a month, so probably about 5 weeks at $50 an hour at $12, or I'm sorry, 12 hours basically for 5 weeks, right? So I worked 5 weeks straight, 12-hour shifts at $50 an hour. I was like, hell yeah, we about to make bank, right?
Hmm.
So was down there, and this store not only had us, it had Ronin security, and it had two basically sergeants from the local police force that were there for a certain time. That's how bad this store was.
All right, so hold
Okay.
on. So Kroger, King Super, whatever the company was
Yep.
hiring out third party protection, but also so they had, you said Roman, which is not who you work for. They also had
Ronin,
Ronin.
yeah.
Yeah, like the samurai, the samurai without a master. Gotcha.
Correct.
Ronin. They also had local PD assets, and then they also had the company that you worked for, which we're not going to talk about. Name names, I guess. So, and they were utilizing all three, maybe even more services out of
Yeah.
Colorado at this time. And so then you come in and you're like, all right, what are we doing?
Oh, 100%. Like the fact that everybody's here and you need even us to be here. Like I was kind of excited. I was like, what am I going to expect? Right.
What is
And
going on?
I will tell you, it upheld its legacy, if you will. It was amazing the stuff
So,
that happened there for 5 weeks.
so what kind of stuff would you deal with? Or what was
So
going on that you would all deal with, I guess?
So the big one, and I want to give kudos to the two sergeants for local PD that were there. They were amazing. They were such cool guys. You can tell they've been doing it for a hot minute because these homeless people that would try to steal stuff, these guys could tell you what they stole, how they stole it before they even came up to them. They would stop them and be like, all right, pull that out of your pocket. And they didn't leave. They didn't go around and walk the store. They just knew. And it was awesome to see these homeless people's faces. They were like, what? They're like, yeah, that's in that pocket. Take that out. Take that. I'm like, no, I'm just dying. I'm like, y'all been doing this for way too long.
Yeah.
The two best three best stories, right? We'll start with two of my detains to arrest.
Hmm.
So this one guy comes in, and the big policy in that store is to make sure you put your backpack at the front to limit, people stealing stuff.
Hmm.
This homeless dude was not about that life. He is not going to set his book back down. This is not going to happen. You don't get to tell me what to do.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I do. So put your book back down. He said, nope. He walked past everybody. And when you first get into the store, they had a big cooler full of like the bigger drinks, like the Arizona iced tea type cans. And he walked up, grabbed a whole bunch and started throwing them at the cashiers, throwing them at us. And I was like, oh yeah, I get to play.
Okay.
And he's throwing them at people. So finally, I walk over there. He throws one at me. He misses. I grab him. I drag him out of the store, throw him outside. He gets up. He's like, "Do you want to go? Is this what you want?" I'm like, "Bro, you don't understand how excited I haven't got to do this in like 5 years, bro. Like, you understand? Like, this is not something you'll do right now." And so he gets up. He tries to do this weird bum rush thing, and I basically pick him up, throw him on the ground, get him on his belly, put him in detain, grab my freaking flexi cuffs, zip it on, and I was like, give me 1 second. And my partner that was there with me had local PD guys come in. They snatched him up. This dude's cussing. He's so mad. He's pissed off. And the local PD is cracking up. And he was like, what exactly was the outcome you were hoping for there, bud? And he was like, fuck you, spits in this cop's face. And this cop's like, noted, throws him in the back of the squad car and they take off. And I was like, that's gonna be a rough day.
That's a rough day. That is
That's
definitely
a
a rough
rough day
day.
for that guy.
Well, hold on. I want to jump. That's one story. You said you had three, but hold on. You talked about your taser and how you rather go hands on. You just reminded me. So my first year as a deputy cut loose, I got into maybe, I don't know, 25, 30. Again, when I say physical altercation, like I was arresting people, they don't want to be arrested. So I just always went hand to hand because I felt comfortable. As you stated, we're not small guys. I'm 6'5". I think at the time I was 280, 290, right around there. I've always hovered around 300, but whatever.
Oh,
And
just say you were 300. Don't you get into the twos. We all know you were
hey,
300.
listen, I'm getting back down. I'm slimming down. My weight fluctuates, but I always went hand to hand. I always went hands on because I'm like, fuck it, I don't need to go to my belt. And I had a sergeant pull me aside and go, Martin, listen to me. If you could go hands on, you can use your taser. And I was like, all right, all right. He goes, it's less paperwork. And so I don't know. I think I had 4 or 5 taser deployments. It does not always work. I can attest to that. I've tased enough people at this point that I've had people rip them right out of their body. But
That's
when it does,
terrifying.
when it,
That's
yeah,
terrifying.
when it does work, you're like, oh, this is a lot easier to do. This is a lot easier. But it's funny that you and I both had the same thought process. And then the other thing I wanted to just touch on is the theft and stuff, because that was always a sticking point for me. Because petty theft is such a pain in the ass to deal with when you're a cop, because somebody might steal, $100, $200 worth of shit, and it'll take you 6 hours of paperwork and this the whole process and the evidence, and you're just like, oh my god, I don't want to deal with it. But
Yep.
I kind of developed, and I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble, but I kind of got into a thing where it kind of depended on what they were stealing for me. Like in Florida, especially, it's not always just homeless. It's a lot of elderly people on fixed incomes. They, for some reason, still a lot of vitamins or whatever, but vitamins, food. I'd have one that kind of stands out. It was an individual in a wheelchair, and he had stolen a bunch of meat and blankets. And I'm like, and they caught him. I think it was like $100. And they're like, so they called me. I showed up. And I was like, hey man, what are you doing? Why are you stealing? He's like, well, I'm cold and I'm hungry and I don't have any other options. And for me, I was like, well, listen, you can't steal. I'm going to trespass you, but I'll pay for this so you can have it. I don't want you to be cold and hungry. So I paid for it. And it's not an all
There you
in
go.
for it. But on the
Okay.
flip side, I had another guy steal like $100 worth of condoms in like video games or some shit. I don't know. He was like a 20 something year old kid. I was like, nah, fuck you, bro. Like that's bullshit. And so I arrested him for theft. So yeah, I kind of developed my own moral code. And with Hillsborough, you kind of had discretion on misdemeanors. But it was one of those things that dudes like people were like, what? You bought him groceries? I was like, listen, man. For me, some dude's hungry and cold. I can't arrest that dude. Like this makes me feel, it makes me feel like a bad person.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
if you steal some
Absolutely.
bullshit, fuck that. I'm going to arrest you. I also,
100%.
I'll give one bad story because that's the other thing. I'm not always just trying to be like, oh, look at me. I do the best things, but I had the youngest person I ever arrested. I think he was 12, and we sat there and watched him.
Jesus.
Oh, dude. And I didn't want to. Like, I was like, this is outrageous. But he had been arrested and trespassed from this Walmart like 4 or 5 times, caught stealing like 4 or 5 times, always let go. And I sat there and watched him just steal video games and rip cell phones out of packages. And I'm like, I brought him in. I'm like, yo, man, what are you doing? He's like, man, fuck you, bro. I'm going to steal what I want to steal and you ain't going to do shit about it. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. So I'm getting into it, this 12-year-old. But anyway, so theft is such a pain in the fucking ass. But anyway, sorry, you reminded me
Well,
of
no,
this
I can
weekend.
only imagine, especially for you guys, because like my job, that was my job, was
Hmm.
essentially that was my job. You guys, like local law enforcement, state law enforcement, whatever, you guys have so much more stuff to worry about than the freaking dude who just stole $100 with the freaking crayons. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, and again, the guy that you just talked about, that guy is just being an asshole. It's not like he's hungry. You know, you hear this shit, again, trying to not make it too political, but you hear this shit like, you know, you're going to arrest somebody they're hungry. They need a loaf of bread. That guy is just being an asshole, throwing drinks, fuck you, wanting to fight cops.
yep.
Fucking asinine. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So that's one
No,
story.
you're good.
You got two more. Go, buddy. Go.
Yeah. So the second one was this older gentleman that came in.
Hmm.
And he was already causing kind of havoc before he came in. He was throwing bottles at cars and stuff like that. And one of the employees who was like protesting, she came in and she was like, hey, look, there's this guy losing his mind out here. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my God. And I was like, this is my best interaction with the two locals. I was like, guys, there's a dude throwing bottles and they were like, yo, we're about to leave. And I was like, really? Really?
Come on. What are we doing?
Like, come on. He's like, you got it. I was like, damn it, man. And so I walked out there and I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he was like, you don't understand. He's just hooping and hollering at me. And this old man took off towards the store. And I was like, oh shit. Like I was not prepared to have to run. I was like, I'm not, what? And so he ran to the store and my partner was there and he kind of blocked him in. This old guy's like, oh, you don't understand what's going on out here. People. And I'm like, oh my God, this dude's losing his mind.
Hmm.
So finally I get over there and he looks at me. He goes, you especially don't understand, and pushes me. And this is this little old man and he pushes me and I kind of looked at him and I was like, what are you doing? Like, just stop. And the two PDs, they already left. And I was like, I looked at my partner and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? He's like, I don't know. Just make sure he doesn't get in the store.
Yeah. Well,
And
like, don't let him in.
yeah, like, what am I supposed to do? He's just losing his mind. So I kind of stood outside. My partner stood in like the doorway, and I made sure that the protesters and stuff were safe. He made sure he wasn't getting in. And this dude was going crazy. He was like punching walls, and I'm like, my God, I get why I'm paying $50 an hour right now because I'm not about to go tackle this like old dude who's losing his mind, right?
Hmm.
So finally, we recalled PD, and they show up. He's going crazy, and they kind of just look at him. They're like, we can just get him to get off the property. And I was like, yeah, can you do that for me, please?
Yeah.
So they're trying to get him off the property. This dude straight up is trying to get off the property, goes to run, and I wish I was making this up. Trips and face plants right into the wall. Boom! And lays down, and the cop is like, oh shit!
Oh yeah. Oh shit.
So they're like trying to make sure he's good. His nose is bleeding. They're like, oh God. So they're like trying to figure out if he's okay. This dude went from laying there, jumps up, and goes, you see what I mean? And took off running. And we were like, Whatever he's on, I want that. I don't know what it is, but I want that. That's insane. Like that was the craziest, one of the craziest homeless interactions that I've had in Denver. To where I was like, I don't know what's happening, but that was amazing.
Yeah, holy shit.
And then the best story of them all. It's also the most disgusting.
Oh, okay, here we go.
So this woman comes in. She's known for stealing. She's known for all these things. And the cops go, "Hey, just so you know, we know who you are. Can you not like steal anything today? Like, can that be a thing?" And she kind of just looked at him and walked away, did her thing, whatever.
Hmm.
She went and grabbed some stuff. And one of the Ronin guys that was in the back, he was like, "Hey, she had like 3 cans of like basically like the tall boys or like Coors Light, like the big ones. She had like three
Yeah.
cans of those, and I only saw her put back 2. And we're like, yeah, but we don't see anything in her pockets. She doesn't have a book bag, like
Oh
nothing.
God. Oh God. I know.
And we're like, well, maybe she just put it somewhere, right? And so she walks up, she pays for the few things she has. And I was telling the cops about this, and the one sergeant goes, he makes a noise and he walks over. He goes, "Ma'am, do you have a can in your crotch right now?" And she was like, "Whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean?" And she goes to walk away. And as you see her walking away, you see her kind of doing this weird like waddle thing. And I was like, she did not. Oh my God, she did not.
Oh yeah.
And they stopped her. And I was like standing there. She pulls this can out.
Mm.
And this chick has the audacity. She looks at me. She goes, "We hold this." I was like, "I didn't know." I'm not touching that. She's
Smart man.
crazy right now.
Smart
What are you
man.
doing? I was so caught off guard by the fact that there was one of those big cans in someone's hoo-ha.
Hmm.
I just couldn't. I never in a million years would I have crossed that off my bingo card. Never in a million years.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
wild,
just-
man.
and now whenever I see like homeless people come in, and especially if they're girls, I'm like, I wonder if they.
Oh
That's
God.
my mindset now. I'm like, I wonder what's in there. It's so gross.
Dude, I could tell you in Tampa specifically, everybody always wanted cops to ride with them, and they would always show up on my calls and stuff like that in Tampa, Florida. And I remember they're like, "Hey, we're always going to your calls with these other deputies that they're riding with. Can we just ride with you?" And I'm like, "Sure, man. I mean, listen, you can come hang out if you want to, but where I work, it's a different ball game. I don't know if it's made for TV, so to speak." They're like, "No, we definitely want to." So they rode with me for a couple nights, and there was several interactions where I would deal with females, not always homeless, but whatever, drug addicts, things like that. And once you work an area, you know them. So I'm like, I know where it is. Pull it out. I don't care about it. Just pull it out. We're gonna throw it away, and you can go away. And they would pull so many different things out of their bodies, and we'd throw it down the drain or whatever, crack pipes, never any weapons, but all kinds of things. And after like 2 days, they're like, "Yeah, we can't use any of that." I'm like, "I told you, man, this is what it is. This is what it is down here."
That makes me think of the story you told me about. You're like, if you're ever a cokehead, just know that was in someone's butt.
Well, yeah, I love I still do. I like talking to high schools about, or different, whatever. I'll talk anywhere, but I would tell stories to high school, and people always laugh. They'd be like, "Oh, this is going to be a dare conversation." And when I had dare, they're like, "Hey, these are drugs. This is what they do. They're bad." And I'm like, so I decided I'm going to tell them the truth. And I'm like, "Listen, I never made enough money to get anything from the source, so I didn't do any of those types of drugs." I said, "But just so you know, any crack, coke, pills, whatever, it was probably in somebody's body. And now that's what you're doing." And the looks on their faces, and some of them, every now and again, you get a kid in the back, whatever, you just look up and start like, "That's true." You'd be like, "I'm trying to tell you, man, that alone would keep me off of most, if not all drugs, because holy shit."
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You know what? That's been in someone's butt. I'm actually good. I'm good.
I'm good. I don't want anything to do with that. I've seen more drugs and paraphernalia pulled out of people's bodies than I try to black some of that stuff out. Every now and again, I'll remember like, "Oh God."
No. Make it
So
go away.
as is common when we talk, dude, I can't remember if you were Triple Canopy. You called me one day. You were like, "Tyler, holy fuck. You saw a car crash, hit a tree or something." Do you remember?
Oh, that was on Triple Canopy when the old man basically drove through the gate, hit the median, flipped his van,
Oof.
split his van in half, but on the passenger half, so it didn't kill him,
Oof.
and landed on its top.
Yeah.
That one was insane.
So what was that about? Can you lead me through it?
Oh man. So we're sitting there at the gate. We're bullshitting with the gate guards with FPS. We're talking. And all of a sudden there's this long straightaway at the gate we're at. And this van is booking it. And we're like, all right, so we're gonna have to yell at this dude for slowing down, like, but he's gonna stop at the gate, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He did not stop at the gate. He kept going. And we were like, what? He hits the median, does the flip, everything, I just said. He smashes his top, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like running over there. I'm trying to figure out if this dude's alive. I'm like, sir. He's non-responsive. And I'm like, oh my God. So I smashed the back window to try to get the door open to get him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I smashed the back window. I get the door open. I see that he's basically hanging on by his seatbelt. I'm like, okay, cool. I can't get the seatbelt off because if I do, he's going to land on his head. And this dude is probably in his like late 80s, early 90s. So I'm like trying to talk to this guy. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And finally everybody shows up, EMTs, FPS, everybody shows up. They get this guy out of here. They're trying to talk to him. He won't talk to anybody. We find out that he has hearing aids.
Oh, God.
So he doesn't know what anyone's saying. His hearing aids during the crash went wherever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, they're getting him out. And with him, because this story gets a lot better, way more interesting. But the story with him, he ends up being okay, right? He's, nothing crazy with him. He's, older man, so he, blew some blood vessels, things like that, but nothing crazy, okay? So this is where the story gets really good. So local and state show up to kind of investigate what's going on outside of the compound, inside, see what's going on. So state decides that they're going to take it over. They're going to take over the scene, which is weird because in Colorado, state doesn't really, unless it's something like crazy, they kind of just like let local deal with it and they care about their business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, state jumping on, we were like, that's weird. All right, whatever. So they're doing this. This family shows up. This family, it was husband and wife and another lady. I don't remember who she was. Well, the wife was the daughter of the old man that just crashed. Mm-hmm. So they want to make sure he's okay. They want to figure out what's going on. And we're talking to these people and, we're talking to the wife and the husband shows up. The husband is the director of State Patrol's accident division.
Got it.
So that's why State Patrol decided to take control over the scene. And I was like, that's so interesting, right? And so for the next few months, I was like trying to see if I could find a report about what's going on, like what ended up being the end result. Never could find anything, never saw anything. But I just thought that was just very convenient of this situation. And we were dying laughing. I'm like, this old man probably had no business driving. 100% had no business driving.
Oh my God. I can only, there's so many stories about traffic crashes. But so, dude, I appreciate it. Can you talk to me about what you're doing now in Hawaii? And you've talked about Space Force a couple times. I mean, as much as you're allowed to.
Yeah.
Not to be super secret, but some stuff needs to be maintained.
Yeah, absolutely. So moved out here to Hawaii and ended up working for, yes, the Space Force is real. It's a real thing. And no, it is nothing like the show on Netflix. I wish it was, but it's not. So I am basically in control of all the communications for the DoD out here in the Pacific, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any type of operations, whether it be combat operations, training operations, I am in control over the communication side, like what you get, how long you're going to have it for, where your location is going to be. I'm the person that if you're active duty military right now and you're talking on a radio, you're welcome. You are welcome. We also deal with the missile defense that's out here. We make sure that they stay on, they stay powered, they stay in contact with each other and the birds. We also maintain the birds that are in the sky. We make sure, there's nothing crazy going on with them, like EMI, which is basically just interference it could be from all the way to Russia, all the way to some pirate off the coast of Brazil or Ethiopia or wherever that just somehow magically tapped into one of our services, and you just kick them off real quick and care about your business.
So I will say with a lot of the work that I done, especially on the political side, it always made me feel kind of concerned about the safety of the U.S. until I started working with military assets. The military assets, and maybe you can speak on it. It makes me feel a lot better. Like, okay, we do have competent people that have game plans and actually give a shit about the safety and security of America and America's assets and America's people. What are your thoughts on that as a whole, I
I
guess?
I would agree. I would agree that majority of the people that you meet, that I've met in my career, yeah, we do dumb things. Yeah, we make dumbass whatever. But as an overall nutshell, the damn rooster, overall nutshell, majority of the people who join the military join it with a sense of purpose of protection and security. Majority, right?
Yeah.
And I will definitely say too that, especially being here in Hawaii, like knowing the people that I know, meeting the people that I've met, and understanding how secure this state is, it's very interesting when you start hearing about the World War III stuff, and not to be political or any of that, but just hearing about that kind of stuff, you're like, it would take an act of whoever's God to take over Hawaii. It's not gonna happen. Sorry, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that makes me
Don't
feel.
touch the boats.
Yeah, don't touch the boats, don't touch the planes. Don't fuck with our comms.
Oh, especially
Well,
that. Russia's learning that one.
yeah, they are. And I've had you on the phone for over an hour, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, because you are in Hawaii. What, if anything, could you talk about with the efforts of? I always get it confused, and pardon my ignorance, with the island that got smoked by the fires. Like, what's going?
Oh, the Maui fires.
Yeah, what's going on with that? And the rebuilding? Is there any rebuilding? Like the displaced people? I mean, there's still talks of, hundreds or possibly 1,000 people still missing. Like we get very limited information from any news outlets or any type of reporting on it. Like what's going on out there?
So it's very interesting, right? So I'm obviously on Oahu, which is the Honolulu island.
Mm,
The fires over in Maui obviously, affected so many different people. We've had a lot of, celebrities come down and try to do fundraisers and all that stuff. And if I'm being 1,000% honest, a lot of those they're frauds. They're scams to get people's money. I'm gonna be 1,000% honest with you. There are very few celebrities who are coming here who actually give a shit about what
mhm.
actually happened. Not gonna do names and all that stuff. Just that, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Rebuilding is in process. The big kicker with Maui right now is the how to rebuild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things are happening to where they want to start building essentially like condos and putting people into condos and having to pay there. Well, if you've lived in Maui your entire life, if you're a native, if you're whatever, and you had a house on Maui, and now all of a sudden you're getting a condo, are
Mm,
you kidding me? That's not happening. So, that aspect people are getting very upset about, because a lot of people just want their homes rebuilt. That's what they want. They want their land back. They want their homes rebuilt. They want to go back to a sense of normality, which that makes sense to me, right?
mm-hmm.
But it's very hard to fund things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the missing children things go, actual knowledge, I have none. I have common sense about that. I have what some people would call conspiracy theories about that. I have a lot of things about that situation because this is just a very true fact. Hawaii is one of the biggest human trafficking states that we have.
Why would you say that?
Just from statistics that you read all the time, and you also have to remember this is kind of a port hotspot, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm super close to Japan, Australia, China. I'm super close to Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines. Like I'm super close to everything that if you want to bring people from those countries, you stop off in Hawaii first, and then your next stop is California.
I see.
So this is the hot spot for a lot of those stuff. And it's kind of terrifying to think about that because I only got introduced to that ideology with one of the guys that I work with. He's very much about, the law enforcement stuff, and he's maybe one step to being one of the where they called the constitutionalist people, the sovereign
Mhm.
citizens.
Okay.
He's one step close to being that. And he, looks up all these stats and statistics and all this stuff. And one of the big ones that stuck out to me was the amount human trafficking stops that they have, the amount of people that they found, the amount of people that they haven't found, all these different things. And then you hear about, these missing children in Maui, and you're like, God, God. Again, I don't know for that to be facts. I do not know, but I just, you hear things, you see things, you do all this, and you're just like, man, I hope that's not the end result. I hope it's not the end result.
Well,
That's
have you?
just, that's all bad.
Yeah, that's the human trafficking stuff. That's horrific. I have some exposure to that, and I'll probably save that for a different episode. But with the displacement of all the people from Maui, there's a lot of talk about being priced out of paradise. Have you seen exponential price increases? I mean,
100%.
Hawaii is always expensive anyway, and I know there's a lot of internal state policy politics where indigenous people have certain plots of land. It's almost kind of how the mainlanders, Native Americans and stuff, where they have certain plots of land only indigenous people can live. But for people who are not indigenous, and even those that are you seeing those people get displaced with now the increase in costs?
100%. That's why they call Nevada the ninth island.
They call what now?
Nevada the ninth island because all of the Hawaiians are moving out to Nevada because it's cheaper. There's a large Hawaiian Samoan population that has gone to Nevada because they are being, like you said, priced out of paradise. It's 100% a real thing. You see it all the time. Majority of the homeless people here are natives, are true natives. And then you have the exact flip side, right? You have the land that's been set aside for the Hawaiians to live on with very cheap pricing, all these types of stuff, all these benefits they get if they do have land here in Hawaii, like all those types of things. So they're trying to balance it out. But at the end of the day, you just can't. You can't balance it out, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you live in a place that's being catered to multimillionaires, multi-billionaires, and then you're like, well, we'll give you 10 acres over here. It's not justifiable. Like, cool, you're trying. Like, that's good job. But like, we all know what you're doing. Like, we all get it. And I'm grateful because I live on a military base, right?
yeah, yep.
So my housing is 100% cheaper than the rest of the island. It's Hawaii is one of those places that if you exclude housing, you pay for what you get in Hawaii, right? So
Yeah.
for food wise, you are paying for high quality products.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're probably paying, $6 for, a gallon of milk or whatever it is, but that milk is coming from the cattle on Big Island that is phenomenal, or the beef, or the pork, or the fruit. Like you're paying for high quality products here in Hawaii, and that's what you do, right? The quality of life in Hawaii is so much higher. If they could just figure out the housing, this place would be amazing.
Dude, yeah, I got limited exposure because I would go to Hawaii for work and stuff like that, and I would interact with local people. And I mean, I met plenty of people that I guess technically are homeless, but they actually have full-time jobs. They just can't afford
Yep.
housing. But the food, the quality of life, as you're talking about, was phenomenal. I was like, holy, I understand why people want to live here. And I hate to see what it has become. Last question, and then we'll keep it moving because the other thing I like to talk about, or I'm interested to talk about, is I just feel like everybody needs to travel outside of the U.S. in order to
Ah,
truly appreciate the U.S. And there are countries that, I mean, Japan, we'll save that for another one because it's one of my favorite countries. But there's certain countries
100%.
that I'm like,
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah, I love these countries. But when you travel around, especially to some of the less popular or maybe less known countries, for me, it really made me appreciate being able to come home to the U.S. and, be able to turn on water and drink it. You might want to you might bitch about the water, but at least you could drink it. You don't have to worry about parasites or the fact that you have food or that you have power, that you don't have to go to, all these things that you kind of just we all take for granted. Again, I'm assuming prior to the Marine Corps, you hadn't traveled outside the U.S. Did that expose you to those other countries? And then, how did that make you feel about coming back to the U.S.? That was kind of a long-winded sentence, but traveling in general.
Yeah, basically, the appreciation of coming back to the United States after going to foreign countries. It's one of those things because, especially in the military, right? You go to the Middle East, you go to the bad parts of Africa, you see chaos, you see destruction, you see pure evil, you see all of these things. And then you come back to the United States and you're like, holy crap. Like, people need to travel. People need to go out so we can have a better appreciation of where we're at. By no means, shape, or form am I saying, America's perfect. We're great. We have everything figured out. By no means, shape, or form am I saying that. But we also have a lot more things figured out than a lot of other places.
Yeah.
And then you have on the flip side, right? Places like Japan, places like Iceland, like Spain, that I've been to that I absolutely fell in love. You start seeing these places and you start seeing some of the policies that they have, some of the things that they do. And you're like, man, this is awesome. And then you step back and you're like, I want this to be in the United States, but I also have to remember that these countries are like the same size as like New York.
Yeah.
So like we have like 50 countries inside one country, right? It's really easy to do some of these policies, have some of these ideologies when you're one country with, 3 million people. Try to get everyone on the same page when you're at like 9, 10, billion. You know what I mean? Like it changes the ballgame. You know what I mean? And that's why I truly believe that people need to travel. I truly believe everyone needs to serve 2 years in the military before they go to college.
A lot of countries
And I truly believe 100%. And I truly believe that people need to travel. Like somehow there needs to be a mandatory, you need to go travel the world for at least 2 years. I don't know how to do that. I don't know if that's a thing, but like it is 100% thing. You need to go see how everyone does. And it gives you a different perspective, a different respect, a different understanding, not for only the United States, but for other countries, right? Because when you're in Japan, you have to be respectful. Like you have to follow this ideology that Japan has had forever. If you don't, you are going to be shunned amongst that country. Like you have to follow the rules, be respectful. And with my wife, she's Chinese. And whenever we go to places and we find someone else who speaks Chinese, Cantonese, I guess, she'll speak Cantonese, and these people will light up the freaking room for us. We've gotten free drinks, free food. We've had all sorts of stuff just because we've been in Japan, Iceland, wherever, and it's another Chinese person. Like, oh my God, mind blown, right? And having that understanding, that love, that respect for every country, and then coming back and bringing it to the United States. That's what the United States is made for. That's why we're called a melting pot. That's the whole fucking purpose of the United States. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the eye-opening ones for me was when I did the Africa swing with 2023. I was in Ghana, Zambia, and Tanzania, and 3 totally different countries within Africa. But every single person that I met was exactly the same. They all had all these questions about they wanted to get to the U.S. And it was for one in Ghana, dude. Everybody was like 6 foot, lean, super happy, smiling. They were happy to be there, happy, excited. But they were talking and they were telling me, they're like, in order to get into law enforcement of the military, they're like, they have to pay their way to go to boot camp, they have to pay for everything. So they're like, it's kind of isolated to individuals that are wealthy. And I was like, dude, in America, the military, we have such a shortage. People don't want to join or can't join for, whatever physical fitness, whatever the reasoning might be. I was trying to explain to them this concept, and they were baffled. They're like, hold on. They will pay you money to join the military or law enforcement. They still don't want to do it. I was like, yes. They're like, I'll do it right now.
Dude, that's 100% the thing.
Whatever
We
I
had a
gotta do.
kid in my boot camp.
Hmm.
Yeah. We had a kid in my boot camp that came from one of the African countries I don't remember that got his green card, got everything because he joined the U.S. military.
Yeah, there was an agent that I worked with in the service. He came from a small tribe in Africa, and I wish I remembered more about the story. It was just such a crazy story he was telling me, but he came from a small tribe. They had one computer with the internet. It took him 2 years. He got over to the U.S. He had to go to night school to learn English. I think he was a janitor at Walmart in Maryland, and he learned English. He basically paid his way through that, figured it out. He joined the army, did his military service, got his college degree, and then joined the United States Secret Service. And he still tells his parents that he's a janitor with Walmart because you don't understand. They wouldn't believe me. And they're just happy that I'm in the US. And I was like, dude, your story is fucking insane. And I wish more
It's
people knew it. But
amazing.
yeah, dude, it's like, he goes, I was like, you're the kind of person and people that like the U.S. one needs, but like nobody ever talks about like one, how hard it is, and two, how people want to come here so badly.
Dude, I think that should be something that you should do for, on this podcast is we should find people that have come to the United States and done great things and like make that like a whole series because I know for a fact Jen's mom, my wife's mom and dad, if I told you their story, man.
Yeah, oh, yeah. We'll save that for another one. But dude, yeah, there's just so many stories
Absolutely.
that I'm like, these are just people just don't talk about this shit, man. They just don't. They have this isolated view of how everything is or should be, and it makes me sad. But brother, I love you. I appreciate you. And that, dude,
Love you. Absolutely, man.
we'll see where this thing goes, man.
I'm excited. I'm so excited for you. I'm really excited for the other people you're going to have coming on because I know I have crazy stories, but I know the couple people that you've told me that if everybody, the listeners that that you have now, stay tuned for the next couple episodes because these next few guys are